situational awareness. It's not about what's happening right now. It's about anticipating what comes next.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot, welcome to Ready for Pushback. And I want to tell you about how I gooned up an VFR approach the other day in Atlanta. We were flying, I think we were coming from like Norfolk or something. And it was a beautiful day. It was absolutely sky clear, a cajillion billion miles of visibility. It was awesome. And I was flying. My first officer was a pilot monitoring, and we were first coming into Atlanta in that little time slot that we were in. So they told us to keep our speed up, and they brought us in to land to the west. And as they did, they started descending us down through 10,000 feet. We did our approach checklist, and then they cleared us for the approach pretty far out. And as we were turning kind of a base, and they gave us a little dog leg to intercept the final for the visual, I was high and I was fast. And if you know anything about the 757, it's a slippery little airplane and it doesn't like to slow down. And so I kind of stomped on the brakes. I had to really quickly roll in a lower altitude. I think it was like 1,800 feet or 1,600 feet or whatever it was. And I hit the flight level change button. I pulled out the speed brakes. I pulled the speed back to about 180 knots so we get the thing under control. We were going, I think, 250 knots. So it takes a few minutes to slow down. As you're slowing down, you're dropping the flaps, trying to get dirty. But the first two flap settings of the 7.5, I mean, they really don't do anything. They don't help you slow down faster. So the first one's flaps 1, the second one's flaps 5, the third one is flaps 15. And it's not until flaps 15 that you can really start slowing down. I think the limit is somewhere around 210 knots for that. I actually haven't looked. But anyway, let's say it doesn't really matter. But trying to slow down. I'm high on the ILS. I'm trying to get down onto it so that I can get to a point where we can just lock up the ILS, drop the gear, and get configured. And that's like straight up dropping the gear is probably what I should have done first as soon as we were below 250 knots, because here's what happens. I was focused on getting down, getting that glide path, getting slowed down. And so we get down and we hit that whatever, like 1,800 feet or whatever altitude I had on the MCP on the mode control panel. And it went into altitude hold. We started slowing down quicker, but then all of a sudden we were still high on the glide path. I was like, oh, shoot. So I had to roll in a lower altitude and start forcing it down. I should have just disconnected the autopilot and kind of flown it, but I didn't. We stopped, we grabbed the altitude, and then I was like, oh, shoot. And then we rolled lower altitude and started coming back down again. And we were getting close to 1,000 feet. And 1,000 feet, you're supposed to be stable. And what is stable? Stable means we're on speed. Stable means that we've got our gear down and our flap settings where they need to be, and we're at our final approach speed, and we're descending at less than 1,000 feet per minute. Okay, so let's talk about why. Because that at that 1,000-foot mark, like that is the mark where they've decided, hey, it's easy to remember that's what you're looking for. And it's easy to remember that if you are on speed and fully configured, then you are going to break out right where you need to be if it's bad weather, and you'll see the runway if you've got the weather for it. If you're going more than 1,000 feet per minute, they want you to do a go around. And here's why they want you to go around, because that rate of descent is dangerous. If you can't get it under control less than 1,000 feet per minute, like you could land short of the runway, you could really have a hard impact, you could land long and be too fast, go off the end of the runway. All sorts of bad things happen when you're not stable. And guess who wasn't stable? Me. And so we hit 1,000 feet. I was watching it. I saw it happen, man. We were coming through 1,500 feet. We were going like 1,800 feet per minute. And it was like 1,300 feet per minute. And it's not digital. Like if you're in an Airbus, it's beautiful digital gauge that you can kind of see exactly where you are. In the 7.5, it's old school. So it's just like your jankety old grandpa's Cessna, that's just got a little VSI that's pointing down, and it's pretty accurate, but it's not unbelievably precise. And so we're like 1,400 feet per minute, at 1,000 feet. And I looked at my FO. I was like, all right, man, go around flaps 20. And we walked our way through it. Go around flaps 20, go around verified positive rate. I said, gear up. We cleaned the gear up 400 feet. They told us to fly runway heading. So we flew runway heading. They told us to level off at 2,000 feet, which is so fast in a 757. Like, man, that thing blasts off out of we were climbing like 4,000, 5,000 feet per minute. And in an instant, it was wild. And then, we were instantly at 2,000 feet, and the airplane is speeding up like crazy. And so we sped it up to like 180, 200 knots, cleaned up the aircraft to flaps 5, basically put us back into a box pattern to come back around to another runway. And here's what we had to do. We had to brief a different runway. Like he pulled it out, set up our bugs, boxes, brakes, brief. That's our mnemonic to kind of remember it. And then he briefed it. I pulled up the plate. We set our bugs and set our speeds, did everything, checked our bingo fuel. And I made an announcement to the passengers with my tail between my legs because nobody likes to do a go around, but hey man, safety first, right? So I do this go around. We come back around, we intercept the glide slope beautifully. Like the controller saw it. He watched it. He saw that we were high and fast. And so he put us in like the perfect spot to intercept final. And we just dropped the gear and went back around. And that was really a great learning opportunity. It made me think about why we do solo shows. And I'm like, man, well, I get to do a solo show. So here we are. And I want you to think about, right, when we think about like the art of landing an airplane, you always want it to be smooth. You want to grease it on, right? Being controlled. It's always on the front of your mind. And when you don't land smooth and you don't have a great approach, you just feel like you failed a little bit. And I want you to know that, when you've got the runway in sight and the descent steady and you touch down and it's smooth, it's awesome. But the truth is, like a good pilot, he's not focused on the landing or the flying the approach. That's one of the things they're definitely doing. But what are they really focused on? You're focused on what to do on the go around and how you're going to go around and where you're going to go. Do you have enough gas? It might sound a little counterintuitive, right? The approach is critical. And we spend a ton of hours practicing approaches, managing speed, monitoring altitude, getting configured, making sure everything lines up just right. But I'm telling you, a real seasoned pilot knows that no approach, no matter how flawless it seems, is a guaranteed landing. And aviation is just like life. It doesn't go according to plan every single time. On a VFR, beautiful day, things are going to be awesome. You got to be planning for that go around. Maybe there's a wind shift. Maybe you got turbulence. Maybe there's wind shear. Maybe there's something on the runway. Unexpected things can happen at any time. And so in those moments, I want you to be thinking about the next 30 seconds and the next 30 minutes, because the safe landing is right there. But if the safe landing isn't right there, what are you going to do? You have to go through those procedures, but then you have to think about trying to make sure you have enough fuel to get to where you've got to go. And if not, then what? The priority needs to be prepared for the go around every single time. Every time you brief, you should brief the go around. Every time you're on final, you should be considering what's happening with the go around. Check your fuel. Think about which direction you might be turning. Think about the next runway assignment you might be getting. Have those things go through your mind. Like, that's when you know you're becoming a master of that part of aviation. Situational awareness, right? It's not about what's happening right now. It's about anticipating what comes next. That fuel planning is so important. When you're approaching the runway, you don't want to just think about how much fuel it takes to get the wheels down and to get to the gate. You've got to think about that full picture. How many pounds does it take? How many gallons, whatever measurement you're using, how much does it take to do a lap in the pattern? For my aircraft, it's 3,500 pounds. The other one, well, for one of them, it's 35. For another one, it's 25. Just depends what variant you're flying. You got to know those things. Have them there for you, right? How much fuel does it take to get to your alternate? Have you thought about that alternate? Does that alternate have the weather you need? I hope so, because if it doesn't, you're in a tight spot, right? What's your minimum fuel? What's your emergency fuel? These are not questions that you need to be asking yourself in the moment. When they say, what are your intentions? You should already have that plan lined up. And it's something we seldom think about because most approaches end in a landing and not a go around. Those questions that we have, we've got to sort them out. CRM requires us to talk about it, the guy or gal next to us, because when that moment comes, everything happens so fast and you don't have time to start calculating numbers. When you discontinue an approach, is not the time to start figuring out what comes next. It's time to execute that plan that you've already sorted out. And if the weather has changed at your alternate, you need to know how it has changed. If there are NOTAMs at the airport that require your attention, you need to know about it. What's going on the ground? What's going on in the air? What's going on with the weather? Those good pilots are always staying ahead of the game. They understand that conditions can change faster than they expect. And that's how you are. And that's how I want you to live your life. Because a go around isn't a decision to delay the landing. It's a decision to safeguard your future options. All right? Keep everybody in that plane safe. That's what you're getting paid for. That's what everybody is expecting. Keep those people safe. Go-arounds are free. Go-arounds require a pilot who's always thinking 2 steps ahead, though. If you're not, that you're going to be paying for that free go-around. And you need to have a level of humility and willingness to admit that sometimes, even with the best approach, the landing is not the best option. So be planning for the go-around, not for the landing. You have to be prepared. And the next time you're on final, I want you to remember this. The goal is not to land. The goal is to arrive safely. And if that means going around, then so be it. If you're there, you're not just the pilot of the present moment. You're the pilot of what's ahead. And that's why I want you to stay prepared. I want you to stay focused. I want you to be ready to adapt when you need to adapt. And you're going to crush. You're going to be fantastic, but you have to think ahead of the aircraft. Think about what's next. Because when what's next becomes what's now, it can get you. So let's go crush. That's what I got to say today, y'all. Can't wait to see you on Monday. Thanks for listening to the show. All right, pilots, that's a wrap on this episode. And I know what you're thinking. You need to make yourself a little bit better. So how do you make yourself a little bit better? You tighten up your resume. So here's what I want you to do. Go over to my website, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and you can download my free resume template. It is literally my resume that you can download and you can put your own skill sets in. It is tight, it is organized, and it's the perfect pilot resume. It's just something I like to do for the pilot group, and it is free to you. So go over there, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and download your free resume template. While you're over there, look at all the services that we offer. Lots of great interview prep, lots of great application review. Everything you need to be a professional pilot is right there at my website, spitfireelite.com/podcast. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode.